The Experience Share. A staple in most Pokemon playthroughs, this item was once a held item for Pokemon and it will receive 50% of the XP gained without going on the field. It was a key tool for leveling up under-leveled Pokemon or recently captured Pokemon. However, in Generation 6, Game Freak made a controversial change, changing the XP share to a key item instead of a held item. When X and Y came out, the Pokemon community were enraged with how easy these games were. But why? A big part of the reason was the new XP share. In theory, it would make sense for 50% of the experience to split evenly amongst the Pokemon who hit the battlefield, while the remaining 50% would be distributed evenly among the Pokemon in the party who did not enter the battlefield. For example, let's say you're fighting a Groudon. It takes 2 Pokemon to defeat the Groudon. The total experience you gain is 10,000. 5,000 will go to the 2 participating Pokemon, and the remaining 5,000 will be split amongst whoever is alive in your party and did not participate. This system would make the XP share more dynamic, meaning the more Pokemon you have in your party, the less amount of experience each Pokemon will receive. That's how it's supposed to work in theory, right? In Pokemon X and Y, that is not the case. In Pokemon X and Y, the Pokemon who hit the battlefield will gain 100% of the experience, even with the experience share on. This in itself makes the game broken, but there's more. Every Pokemon in your party that is alive will gain 50% of the experience, not split in between Pokemon, every Pokemon. This means if you have 6 Pokemon in your party, you are effectively gaining 250% more experience than your typical Pokemon game. Let's go back to our Groudon example. Let's say this time, 3 Pokemon were needed to defeat Groudon, and there's 6 Pokemon in your party, and we gain a total of 10,000 experience, hypothetically. That 10,000 experience will be split amongst your 3 Pokemon that entered the battlefield, and then 5,000 will be given to each of the 3 Pokemon that are alive and did not enter the battlefield. It basically feels like you're creating experience out of thin air, just like you're a magician. This is the reason why your Pokemon's levels feel over-leveled compared to the gym leader's aces in Pokemon X and Y, and why the battles feel so easy. It's not that the gym leaders levels have changed drastically between generations, but rather a shift in how the experience is distributed. Not only does the experience share give experience, but it also gives EVs, which stand for effort values. To put it simply, the more battles you put your Pokemon in, the stronger and the more points you'll get in HP, attack, defense, special attack, special defense, and speed. This gradual boost in stats help make your Pokemon stronger over time. EVs are a key factor in making your Pokemon stronger, and while you may not have optimal EVs like in competitive, any EVs are better than no EVs, especially in a normal Pokemon playthrough. With the key item experience share, everyone is getting EVs, whereas with the held item experience share, only a few Pokemon are getting EVs, thus making the game secretly easier. In Generation 3 to 5, since the XP share was a held item then, if at least one Pokemon is holding the XP share, here's how it works. 50% of the experience will be distributed to everyone who entered the battlefield and is not dead, and the other 50% will be split amongst the Pokemon that are holding the experience share item, therefore adding up to 100%. Let's go back to our Groudon example. It took 3 Pokemon to defeat Groudon and 2 Pokemon on your team that has the experience share. If Groudon gets a total of 10,000 XP, 50% of that, so 5,000, will be split amongst the 3 Pokemon that killed Groudon, and the other 5,000 XP will be split evenly amongst the 2 Pokemon holding the XP share item. So why did Game Freak exactly change the leftovers in Generation 6? Well, Junichi Masuda, one of the original developers of Pokemon, stated in an interview that the XP share change was to create less difficulties for Pokemon players, especially because Pokemon's demographic is a younger audience. Now, while young adults like us might feel like Pokemon X and Y are the easiest Pokemon game, we are not the main demographics for Pokemon. The main demographic is for kids, and kids might find it very difficult to beat the game, especially with the held item experience share. So with the global experience share and the 250% increase in XP, the game will be much more easier and enjoyable for these kids. When I was a kid, I remember struggling very hard battling Red on Mount Silver and Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. When Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver came out, I was 7 years old, so leveling up Pokemon to around 80 to 90 range for each Pokemon were very slow, time consuming, and unenjoyable. Thankfully, I found a loophole to get experience without training by using the Morty's Gym technique. Put 2 Pokemon in the daycare, stick a coin in the circle pad in Morty's Gym, and free infinite steps. However, the only problem with that is that the daycare does not give any EVs, so even though I get levels, I still am behind on stats. Now imagine if I had a fraction of what the experience share was in Pokemon X and Y in Heart Gold Soul Silver. Personally, my 7-year-old self would have had a much more enjoyable experience, especially because Heart Gold Soul Silver is not level friendly between gyms 5 to 7, but there are still benefits to the key item experience share. For instance, the experience share system makes it easier to EV train multiple Pokemon of the same stat at once. So for competitive players like me, you can train up to 6 Pokemon at once with the same EVs instead of 2. From Generation 6 onwards, the experience share has evolved to combine both aspects from the Generation 3 to 5 mechanic and the Generation 6 mechanic. When the experience share is toggled, 50% of the experience points earned in the battle will be split between the Pokemon who participated in battle, and the remaining 50% are evenly distributed amongst the party that did not participate in battle. This approach blends the best of both worlds of previous experience shares, allowing for a more balanced distribution of experience across the party.